Hey everyone, Ashley here. Welcome to Ashley Talks Movies, and welcome to my review of Oppenheimer. Written and directed by Christopher Nolan, the movie tells the story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, the American theoretical physicist known as the father of the atomic bomb. Before I get into the review, if you'd like to support the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'd really appreciate it. Also hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of the videos I'm posting. Time for the review. Oppenheimer is a complex story about a complex figure in history, and what Christopher Nolan is able to do here is create a thought-provoking narrative that's mostly told from the perspective of Oppenheimer. And this is a man who is just fascinated by the endless possibilities of science, but also someone who has to grapple with the consequences of the work that he did. And maybe comes to that realization too late. The story of Oppenheimer plays over this 3 hours, and Nolan is very precise in picking certain points in Oppenheimer's life to focus on to tell that story in that 3-hour time span. And during that time, we're jumping timelines. We're going into Oppenheimer's life before he was developing the atomic bomb, during the development of the atomic bomb, and of course, the aftermath of that. And so it is a very fascinating, interesting story. I mentioned this movie's 3 hours long, and honestly, it didn't really feel like a full 3 hours. I think part of that is because the movie is paced so well, particularly at the beginning. And this movie surprised me in how quick it was, especially in the beginning, with the dialogue, with the cuts between scenes. Like, it moves at a pretty rapid pace. Although, there's so much going on here because, again, we have all these different characters, we have all these different storylines, we have all these different details, historical details that are kind of thrown in, and there's a lot of science jargon that's thrown in as well, that it can be a little overwhelming because it moves at such a rapid pace. But once it settles in, this movie finds its groove. And like I said, it didn't feel like 3 hours because it was very interesting subject matter and it was handled so well. This movie, just like so many of Nolan's other movies, just looks beautiful. Visually, it is stunning, and the cinematography is great. The color palette is wonderful as well. And I like that this movie was shot on film, and you can tell the difference. One of the things I really loved about the movie was the performances. And this movie has such a great cast. There are a lot of big name actors, Oscar winners in this movie, and some of them are only in the movie for just a little bit. Some of them show up for one scene. Some of them show up and say a couple lines of dialogue, and then you never see them again, but each of them are memorable. And, Cillian Murphy, he's the lead. He's playing Oppenheimer, and he delivers, I think, the best performance of his career. And I would not be surprised if he, got nominated for an Oscar or even won an Oscar, because he's just so brilliant in this role and he really embodies the character. And I mean, just from his eyes, his mannerisms, the way he's speaking, he does such a great job of bringing this character, this figure to life, and showing the complexity of this particular person. And he was just outstanding. Another highlight was Emily Blunt, who plays Oppenheimer's wife. She was wonderful as well. She had a little bit of limited screen time, but what little time she had on screen, she made the most of it. And there's just a couple of scenes really, but there's one in particular in the movie where she just nails it. And she blew me away. Just fantastic all around. And then you also have Robert Downey Jr. in this movie, and Robert Downey Jr. is an amazing actor, and people know this, but I think for a lot of people it's easy to forget just how good Robert Downey Jr. is, because for the longest time many of us have known him as Iron Man, and for some people that's all they've known him as is Iron Man. And so to see him do a more dramatic role like this, one that has a lot more layers and complexity to it, and he gets to show off his acting chops, he was brilliant as well, and he was so good, and I really enjoyed his performance. I really enjoyed this movie. I was fascinated by the story. I was fascinated by the characters. I liked how Christopher Nolan weaved everything together with the timelines, and I really think he did such a great job of connecting the different timelines together in a way that felt really cohesive. I was never confused by when and where I was in the story because of how Christopher Nolan put this story together. And I really liked that there was that complexity there where you have this main figure who is, grappling with so many things, and how Nolan chose to show that internal conflict with Oppenheimer. There's certain stylistic choices that Nolan makes to show inside the mind of Oppenheimer to the audience. And I really liked how he did that. But if I had, any complaints about the movie, it wouldn't be the time, because usually that's my complaint, is that, maybe a movie's too long here or there, where things feel like there's scenes that just aren't necessary. But everything felt very, very precise here with this movie. If I had a complaint, my complaint would be one that I've had for many other Christopher Nolan movies, and that's the sound mixing. There are so many times in this movie where I could not hear or quite understand what some of the actors were saying. And it wasn't necessarily because they were mumbling, it was just because there were other sounds that were overpowering the dialogue. And this is a movie that is very dialogue heavy. And so you would think that there would be a prioritization of making sure that people could hear what these characters are saying, because if what they're saying is important, I need to be able to hear it. So that would be just the biggest complaint with this movie. But other than that, Oppenheimer is just, a visual treat, and it's a very interesting, compelling story, and has some great performances, and it's just a really, really well-made film. So those are my thoughts on Oppenheimer. If you had a chance to watch the movie and you want to share your thoughts, you can do so in the comment section below. While you're here, like this video, just hit the thumbs up button, and don't forget to subscribe to see more videos like this.